Today on Lights Up with Lyric, I sit down with Cameron Shirey and Maher from Reno Little Theater's next production in their 81st season, Lee Blessing's FORTINBRAS, a hilarious and modern sequel to Shakespeare's Hamlet. The production hits our stage in time to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. FORTINBRAS takes place directly after the events in Hamlet. If you're like me and you aren't too familiar with Hamlet, don't worry. This is one sequel where you don't need to see the first to follow along. Just so that we're all on the same page, Hamlet can be summed up in one word. Now that we're all filled in on the story, let's meet a couple of the actors from the show. Come on! Here we are on location in Reno Little Theater's rehearsal hall. I'm sitting here with Cameron Shirey and Maher of FORTINBRAS. This question is for both of you. Tell us a little about the show and the character that you play.
Okay, I guess I'll start. My name is Cameron. I play FORTINBRAS, who is a really arrogant and idiotic prince of Norway. Pretty much thinks he's the shit, but he's an idiot.
Fair enough.
So,
all right, and Mark,
yeah,
tell us a little about your character, who actually had a really big part in Hamlet. Correct?
Yeah. So I play Horatio, and something that is really fun about him in FORTINBRAS is that he is maybe the only character from Hamlet who is completely just transferred right over into FORTINBRAS. Like this exact same guy, he's the one where you can really tell that this is an extension of the original play. His personality is the exact same, and because of that, he acts as the straight man to FORTINBRAS throughout the entire show. So he's this very serious person who misses the way things used to be, and it makes for a lot of fun watching him react to FORTINBRAS.
the reason the show is so funny is because of him. Like, I say funny things, but he's the one who's sitting there going, I cannot. Like, he's the one where you're watching his facial expressions, and like you can totally sympathize with his character because he's so like. You can see how absurd this whole thing has been becoming because he's the only one who is really remaining true to the story, and that's what the whole play is about, is how the story just gets blown completely out of proportion.
You mentioned earlier that your character, Horatio, is longing for the way that things used to be. Is that the way that things used to be before King Hamlet died and the events of Hamlet, or longing for the way that things used to be before FORTINBRAS?
We talked about this a little bit at a previous rehearsal, and I don't know that I have a good answer for that, because throughout the show he talks a lot about Hamlet and how Hamlet was as a prince and contrasts FORTINBRAS with Hamlet. I'll put it in a way that I don't think is much of a spoiler. There's a longer speech that Horatio gives at a point in here where he talks about Elsinore. And he doesn't mention Hamlet during the speech that he gives at all. And I think that, in a way, what Horatio is longing for is actually a specific way of governing. And this fantasy world, Camelot, things like that.
It's a nicely ran democracy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
He has a very specific idea of the way he thinks the world should work, and Elsinore represents that. It just happens that Hamlet was there at the right time for him.
And they were friends. Hamlet and Horatio were really good. There's one line in the show where it kind of sets up the plot for the whole show. He's explaining to Horatio what he thinks should have happened in terms of the story, and he just goes, "This story's gonna work out great." And it's just like, it's that line where you're just like, no, it's not. Like, it's like, so that it's it's at the beginning of the show. You just you're just, after he says that line, you're just like, no, it's not. And then his face. Yeah, just
what I think is so cool for you is the fact that FORTINBRAS isn't in Hamlet, because everybody else is constrained to a certain extent. Again, without giving away too much, the other characters who show up play in a way an opposite or a modification of what they were in Hamlet, but that's still a limitation, because it's still obvious that it's like, this is what you're still controlled by by Hamlet. And you don't have to be controlled by anything, because he wasn't in Hamlet. You get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's what's so fun.
Everyone is so excited for this show that even the playwright, Lee Blessing, is coming for opening weekend. FORTINBRAS runs from April 1st to April 24th. Book your tickets now, And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, join the conversation on Twitter, and get behind the scenes on Instagram.